The goal of our TA training program is to provide discipline-specific training for our graduate students. And by this I mean that our graduate students are biologists. They're working in the lab, and we want to train them to actually be able to impart knowledge of biology to undergraduates while they're actually conducting research in the lab. And so in our program, the TAs are taught how to engage students, how to prepare interactive exercises to get the students actively participating in their own education. Another aspect then is to help the graduate students learn how to do that while they're balancing their own research programs. And this is really important because these are our future educators, our future faculty, and to be a successful faculty member, they not only have to be very good and engaging teachers for our undergraduates, but they have to be able to effectively do that teaching while they're running their own research programs.
One of the things that I've put together is a web-based electronic pre-lab question system. And this enables the students to do their pre-lab work and get instantaneous feedback. So they've gotten the feedback on the pre-lab work before they've ever come in to do the actual experiment. And these pre-lab questions include items on safety. They include items on procedural steps, kind of why are you doing this, what comes next. And then finally, there's questions there on calculations, either pre-lab calculations that they need to have done before they come into lab, or calculations that they will be doing in lab, so sample calculations. One of the biggest benefits that I've seen is students come in far more prepared for the experiment. They've had to go look at their lecture textbook, which is something that before they weren't really doing. They were just relying on the introduction to the experiment. So they've gone out and gotten extra information, extra background on the experiment that they're doing. And then when they come into lab, they ask more intelligent questions. And they're more prepared for what they need to do in terms of the calculations. One of the benefits that's really come out of this is the TAs have a reduced amount of grading. So the TAs are seeing the students are doing a better job, and as a result, they have less grading that they have to do and less corrections that they have to do. And another benefit of having this program is it's very easy to revise. So we can go in, we add a new experiment, we can come up with a new electronic homework set. If we want to take an existing experiment into a new direction, we can add the pre-lab questions in there to prepare the students for that new direction we've taken things in.
Some of the things I do to make my teaching effective is, let's see, I don't stand at the podium. I don't use lecture notes. I try to make the lecture as interesting as possible. And I think having an interesting subject matter makes it a lot easier on me. But I try to engage the students, and because they're engaged, they seem to learn things much easier. I like to get them to participate. I get 20, 25 questions or answers in an hour lecture. I do that by rewarding them. So they're very reluctant to speak, particularly in a large classroom. So I give them promotional pens that I get from pharmaceutical companies, and that turns out to be very rewarding for these people because they're going into that field. And I just enjoy myself when I'm in class. I like the students, and I think they pick up on that. Another thing that I do is that I don't use a textbook when I teach a course. I find that the textbooks that I see are really boring. They're not interesting. I think the students know that. And then it really constrains how I can lecture to them. I always feel like I'm reading the book to them on some level if I assign a textbook. So I assign a different book, a book that's very interesting, but I don't lecture about that at all. And I think the students appreciate that as well. The first thing I do when I come into the classroom is I tell them what my goal is. And my goal is to fascinate them. And I want them, and I tell them this, I want them to walk out of the classroom every time and say, wow, I didn't know that. And then I want them to be so interested that they tell someone, a friend, family member, about what they've just learned. And And very often the students will come up to me and tell me how interesting they find it, so that's a payoff. But often the roommates of my students tell me how interesting they found the course because their roommates have been telling them about it. Another payoff is that the students become interested enough so that many tell me that one of the big reasons that they go into the neurobiology major is that they've taken my course and they've enjoyed the subject material, and they want to learn more about it. And that's my goal, is to make them interested enough to pursue it. After college, it has to be the fascination with an area that actually drives them to keep learning throughout their lives.